So I'm going to read this passage now to us. And as we read it, perhaps you might like to close your eyes. And again, imagine the scene, imagine the story. Imagine you being one of the disciples sitting there as Jesus washes your feet. So let's listen really carefully. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. He was about to die. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." Verse 12. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So we're in the middle of a series at church here about holy habits. It's about actually learning the habits of Jesus, learning to be like Jesus. And we've done things like prayer and reading the Bible and fasting, which are often things we think about when we think about holy habits, or the posh name is spiritual disciplines. But today we're very briefly going to think about service, because that also is what Jesus did. And if we want to learn to become more like Jesus, we need to learn to serve as Jesus did. And so we've read this amazing story where Jesus does a remarkable thing. Now, I need 2 volunteers. I need someone to be Jesus who's going to wash some feet. And I need someone who doesn't mind their feet being washed. Do you want to come? Great. Now, do you want to be Jesus and wash feet, or do you want to have your feet washed?
I want to wash feet.
You want to wash feet, right. Could you put the Jesus costume on, which is a bit looking like an angel costume, but I couldn't find a Jesus costume. Can you put that on? Could someone Debbie, could you help him do that? Who's gonna have their feet washed? No volunteers. So who's? Oh, right, come on then. Yeah, whoever's over there, come on then, up. And you can be one of the disciples and have your feet washed. And here's the disciple. I knew I could rely on you. Can you put the disciple costume on, Eamon? There we go. Yeah, it will be a bit big, because Barry wore that on Thursday. Now, what do we need? We need a bowl of water, and I couldn't find a towel, so we're going to have to use paper towels. Now, Eamon, I think you're going to need to take your shoes and socks off. Can you do that? And I think you need to sit on this chair, and you're going to need to get up so that you can wash his feet. Debbie, do you think you might organise that while I do the rest of the talk? Thank you. And I think this, for some of us, this is a really well-known story. For others, it may be new, but for some of us, it's a really well-known story. And I think we can miss just how amazing this story is. I was doing an assembly in Malvern Wells this week, and we were thinking about leaders. And I put some pictures of leaders on the screen. I put this picture of leaders on the screen. Now, who can see what we've got there? Who have we got up there?
On the top left, Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
And then on the top right, King Charles.
So Boris Johnson, King Charles. Who's bottom right? Jesus. And who's bottom left? Mrs. Alford. Now, Mrs. Alford is the new head teacher at the Wells. So I was talking about her being the great leader that she was there. And I was thinking about them. I was thinking, now, how many of these people do you think would wash someone else's feet? Boris? No. He would want his feet washed for him, wouldn't he? King Charles III? I think you're optimistic. I think Mrs. Alford would. And I think Jesus did, didn't he? But I think it's amazing that actually Jesus was the King of Kings, the most amazing leader in the world. He was God himself in human form. And he was prepared to get down on his knees. Do you want to get ready? Washing the feet. And wash, that's brilliant, great. Wash the disciples' feet. You know, he was prepared to take the job of a servant, to say, I'm your leader, but actually I'm going to do the job of the real servants, and I'm going to wash that's beautifully washing. Is it nice? Was it a bit weird?
It's a bit cold.
It's a bit cold. Oh, sorry, I did put hot water in. But it's amazing that Jesus was prepared to do that because he was prepared to serve others. And he, by serving, showed them his love. And Jesus said this after he'd done that. He said to his disciples, if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. What he was saying was, I've set you an example I've showed you what it means to serve others and to live my way. Now you go and do the same. And in many ways, that's what we've been talking about with baptism. You know, we'll come back to that picture in a minute. There's a line that we've said that the parent said, I will show God's love for them by what I do and say. And in some ways too, what that's about is about modeling Jesus' life. And just as Jesus served others, actually as parents, we're called to serve our children. Even though they might not deserve it sometimes. No, they always deserve it. But the amazing thing is, whose feet did Jesus also wash that night? At the end of the story. Can anyone remember? Begins with J. Yeah. Judas, that's right. And Judas, later that evening, within an hour probably, went out to betray Jesus and get money to sell him for the people to arrest him. And yet Jesus knew that, and he still washed Judas's feet. He still showed him that love. That's brilliant. Do you want to start drying them now? Because I'm coming into land. Thanks, Debbie. And so I want to just ask the question today, what does it mean for us to wash one another's feet? Now, most of us probably won't have the opportunity that we've had here to wash each other's feet. Although if you come on Maundy Thursday evening up to All Saints, you will have the opportunity. But it doesn't mean that all we should do is wash each other's feet. It really means we're called to serve others, to serve each other, to be prepared to do the lowest jobs, the servants' jobs, to look after each other. And as I look round this church, I see many, many people who are servants. I see, where's Ivor? I see Ivor come on a Friday morning to get all the toys out for toddlers and to chop up the grapes and to make the coffees. He's an amazing servant, which enables others to just do the other bits. Thank you, Ivor, for serving that way. We've got our tech team today here, sitting at the back, making all this work. And tech team, I saw my mother yesterday. And my mother gave you a great compliment. She watches a few different online services and says the sound for these services is the best sound out of any of the churches she watches. So there's a great compliment from my mother. And hi, Mum, if you're watching later. Nice to see you yesterday. And all the other jobs that we do, people who help out with car parking, people who make coffee, we're called to serve each other because that is what Jesus did. And Jesus shows that to us. And I just want to finish with this picture. You know, it's Mother's Day. So here is a whole load of different women who serve, and men, actually. There's paramedics down the bottom right who are men. Anyway, These are just some of the different ways in which women or men too serve each other. And whenever we do this, we are doing what Jesus called us to do. And we're following the way of Jesus and sharing his love with others. So I want to encourage all of us today, that's you children, but also the grown-ups, and you ask your parents later on if they've done it, is think about who can you serve today? What's one thing you might do to serve others today? It might even be on the way home, noticing some litter on the road, on the pavement, and picking it up and serving your community by doing that. Or making mum's lunch, or a nice cup of tea, or whatever. But we're called to serve, and as we serve, we're following Jesus' example. So that was nearly perfectly timed, wasn't it? Just got to get the shoes on now. Well done, guys. Thank you.